So this episode was a bit of a puzzle, or rather my own reaction towards it. I loved the episode overall, but felt a discomfort with the Sisterhooves Social itself. Something wasn't fitting, and I often argued with myself about what it really meant. At first I thought I was uncomfortable because this was a mayor's-only event. This stands out because in the whole show, I can only recall 2 events that were defined by gender. The first and most obvious being the Sisterhooves Social, and the second being Big Mac and Spike's Guys' Night. Now, the social judges, who I guess were just off-screen in Season 2, make an effort to say that
the Sisterhooves Social has always had a loose policy when it comes to what counts as a sister.
But let's be honest. It's called the Sisterhooves Social. The flyers show a mayor and a filly. And while I don't mean to say that the bonds between brothers or the bonds between brothers and sisters are any less loving, it'd be a disservice to say that such relationships were interchangeable. This stands out because so many events in Equestria are open to all. Even in the Equestria games, there was no division between mare and stallion competitions. Everyone competed on the same field. By a similar notion, I'm not sure the idea of the social reinforces the matriarchy idea that I've seen from fellow fans. A matriarchy and a patriarchy aren't even 2 sides of the same coin. They're just different halves of one side. The only real difference is who is in charge. A matriarchy is defined by female leadership, which might seem obvious in Equestria. Yet that's only one aspect. A matriarchy also places the emphasis on a woman as the head of the household and the defining trait for daily conduct. You get married, you take on the woman's surname. Moral authority is decided by female judgment, and most social opportunities favor women. Rainbow's comment might be taken as a sign of matriarchy because it implies that stallions are somehow inferior.
But don't think me and Scootaloo are gonna take it easy on you just because you're a stallion.
The pride cometh before a fall, and I think that comment just makes the outcome more satisfying. But let's also be fair here. I'm betting that Rainbow Dash wasn't running full speed. A patriarchy is basically the same thing, just swap in men in place of women. Neither system is driven by respect for an individual's ability or character, just the number of chromosomes present. And that's why I find both so unappealing. I see Equestria as more egalitarian, the opposite of a patriarchy or matriarchy. Yes, the rulers are 2 princesses. Oh, sorry, 3. Right, 4. Oh, come on! She's not old enough to rule the local daycare. Yet despite this, we have seen male nobility. They're awful at their roles, but that's more an issue with the writing. None of them has been denied a chance to make a positive impact. By that same token, the Wonderbolts are led by a mare, but her second in command is a stallion. We've seen community leaders, both male and female, in various parts of Equestria. The apples are centered around Granny Smith as the family head, but the same can't be said for the cakes or the pies. And the one who usually points out the most moral action is Spike.
But what if you're wrong, Twilight?
The only 2 jobs I'm aware of that seem exclusive to one gender are actually male-dominated. You have the Royal Guard and cab drivers. I can't really speak to the latter, but I think most mayors are smart enough to realize that being a Royal Guard isn't as grand as it first appears. That, or the show doesn't want to display female guards being brought low because this show is for girls. Ooh, say, that might be part of my conundrum. I think it's great that this show has attracted both men and women across the age spectrum. But it was created and marketed towards young women, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. But then I have to ask, what does 4 girls really mean? Showing 6 well-rounded characters who have a dynamic relationship? That's definitely a positive. Most shows targeted at males feature 1 to 2 female leads, and if you don't care for either, then it's better luck next show. So I'm all for the idea of providing young women with better role models. But how they're presented is important. Going back to the princes, I can't say they're good at their roles. Blue Blood is entitled. Shining Armor hasn't made any effort to act more as a prince. Rutherford is too dumb to live, and will likely take his people with him. Furthermore, Soren is the literal fall guy for the Wonderbolts, and there have been many cases where male characters have simply not acted to help the situation, or been left behind even though they had a stake in the conflict. Now some would argue that's because the show is for girls, but how are the main 6 enhanced by everyone else's incompetence? If anything, I think it weakens their presentation. It's saying that they're just baseline competent in a world of incompetence. More than that, I'm concerned that the message becomes that women can't be self-sufficient if there's even one guy helping them out, which is simply not true. When I say that I'd like to see mayors and stallions working together more, as they have in more recent seasons, it's not that I want guys to solve a problem for the lead heroines. It's that I hope young women can see positive male examples so they don't settle for less in real-life interactions. Which, son of a gun, this episode provides that. Big Macintosh is a hard-working, competent and loving character. He's doing all this with no regard for his ego, out of love and wanting to lift his little sister's spirits. He flubs at just about everything because it doesn't play to his strengths, but how can you not love him during that final scene? So yeah, this episode is doing a lot of positive things, including greater diversity in the background. Look back at Sisterhooves Social and notice the background ponies. How many stallions are present? By my count, 1. Big Macintosh, who is helping run the event. Brotherhooves Social featured a stallion on the committee, several stallions helping run the event, and several in the audience. No one is forcing them to leave or saying they shouldn't be there. I'm not sure about their motives, but I think fanfic writers could tap some unexplored potential. Might there be a stallion attending to honor his lost sister? Or perhaps one who is romantically involved with the elder of the pair and trying to show support? A parent? A cousin? Go to town, folks! So the event isn't barring males from taking an interest, but the message is still emphasizing that this is a female-only event. And is that a bad thing? I had no qualms about Spike and Big Mac having a guys' night while the others were away. I think both genders do need time amongst peers to have a healthy development, as much as they need time to interact. Yet the big thing here is that Spike and Big Mac's greatest hesitation was letting another guy into their circle of friends. When Pinky and Rainbow wanted to join in, there wasn't a moment's hesitation. So again, Equestria's egalitarianism seemed to be shining through. But still, something didn't feel right about this gathering. I finally got my answer thanks to an event outside My Little Pony. At the time I was working on these videos, Wonder Woman came out to a very strong reception. My favorite theater chain, the Alamo Drafthouse, launched a special event where they would host a women's-only viewing for one night. Not unlike the Sisterhooves Social, except that the no man policy was in full effect. Every staff member for that showing was likewise female. This drew some flack from various men and women online. On its own, it's no big deal, and this was a special one-time event rather than a steady policy. By no means were men prevented from seeing the movie. Yet if there's one flaw to the Alamo's approach, it's that they let the narrative shift. Take a look at their announcement. Apologies, gentlemen, but we're embracing our girl power and saying no guys allowed for one special night at the Alamo Ritz. Backlash online would prompt a nationwide event for 2 nights, kind of a middle finger to the critics. But there are 2 parts to that announcement that run along the same question as what 4 girls really means. Girl power, a slogan made popular by the Spice Girls in the 90s, is all about empowering independence, self-assuredness, and female identity in all its various forms. Or it's meant to sell you a Pepsi, marketing kind of muddied the waters. No guys allowed is something a 7-year-old puts in front of their clubhouse. The 2 are not synonymous because one is all about encouraging strength, while the other focuses on creating a void. The Alamo social media team did a good job of countering criticism with snarky humor, but they never shifted the emphasis back to women's empowerment. The whole thing, especially the nationwide follow-up, was presented as dismissing men rather than celebrating women. I think that's what happened with the Sisterhooves Social as well. The first one we saw was all about getting siblings to come together and gave Rarity a chance to mend the rift with her little sister. It was all about celebrating their bond. Brotherhooves Social shifts the narrative from empowerment to exclusion. Big Macintosh wants to rebuild his bond with his little sister, but must adopt a false identity to make that happen. And again, that disclaimer at the end doesn't counter the message that's been presented. Even Granny Smith, who's been there since day 1, acted on the implied message.
Such a shame we don't live closer to all your second cousins. You could maybe do the social with one of them instead.
Big Mac didn't really succeed in building a bond until he was away from the social and spoke in private, letting his guard down. So I come away from this episode seeing the social as an obstacle rather than an opportunity, and that is where my discomfort lies. If there's anything I take away from looking at all this, it's that an event, movement, or mentality shouldn't be defined by exclusion, because forcing an absence doesn't empower anyone. You might feel strong for having set up or reinforcing this exclusion, but that goes away in short order. Sooner or later, you have to interact with people outside that group, and if you haven't built a strong core for your own identity, then the strength that came from without quickly disappears. So whether it's a social gathering, a movie night, game night, a marathon, or any other gathering that celebrates an identity, I think there's a lot of value to such events. But the key thing is that these events are about building people up, not pushing others out of the picture. One motive empowers groups and individuals, the other festers weakness. Those are my thoughts on a small element of the episode, but one that encouraged a lot of thought. I'm Silver-Quill. Thanks for watching.